Hi, I'm Josh, welcome to a new video, and today I'll change the usual topics I talk about in this channel, cause as some of you may know, I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII. That game changed my life. It had such an impact in a way no other game had done in a while. Plus, I played it in a time where I felt really identified with Cloud. I really connected with the characters, story, music of it. And no game has done that ever since. I had been excited for the remake of it since it was announced, cause my interest for Final Fantasy VII dates back to 2016. But I didn't go ahead to play it cause visually it was not super appealing for me, and that's still one of the aspects I enjoyed the least from it, cause let's be honest, it didn't age well. But when I finished the game, I was dying to play a version with today's graphics. The trailers were jaw-dropping, and the gameplay when it was released was too, but I was doubtful to spend that much money in this game. Luckily, on March 2021 I got it for free with PS Plus, and a year and 3 months later I finally finished it. And I really wanna get my thoughts on it out. But before starting, remember this is just my opinion, not the universal truth. And whether you agree or disagree, I hope you enjoy watching. Also, there's gonna be spoilers everywhere, so be warned. Okay, I think this game is the biggest love-hate relationship I've ever had. Cause I'm so conflicted between the positive and negative things about it. Even though I try to avoid negativity in this channel, I gotta get out what I've got in mind, and there's gonna be some here. So I'll divide this in general and also specific aspects of the game, starting with the game itself. The first problem I have with this game is that it's not a full remake of the original one. It just covers the Midgar section, meaning there's probably going to be at least 2 more parts to complete it. I think this is a horrible idea, cause first, they were more than capable of doing the whole game, and second, it breaks the pace. Cause we need to wait years between parts, and also they're already changing members of the team working behind it. Nomura isn't going to be the director of this second part, which for me is good, but don't you learn? Don't you see how this was part of the reason of the downfall of Square and the Final Fantasy series? I wanna think the second part is going to be good, but whether it is or not, it should not have existed in the first place. Cause I personally think this game should have been almost a carbon copy of the original one. Not only without dividing it in parts, but also staying loyal to the story. Cause I think this remake should be an option for new people to enjoy the same story, which by the way is one of the best ever written, with the improvements allowed by the technological advance since 1997, while also being a way for old fans to enjoy such a game with today's technology. But this game changes the story in such a way that leaves the door open for even more change. Because of that, I don't consider this a remake, this is more of a reimagination. And the way it does it is honestly not even interesting. Basically, the characters have a destiny assigned for them, these being the events of the original game. So for example, it's Aerith's destiny to be killed by Sephiroth. But some of their acts play with the possibility to change this destiny. So we have these other characters called Destiny Spirits, and their mission is to avoid that. From the beginning, I think that idea sucks, but it's explained in a very not interesting, bad explained way. So it leaves a lot of holes, but my biggest problem is that it allows the story to completely change. To the point where it seems like this game takes place in a universe where the events of the original one already happened. The biggest changes, and also the worst for me, are the fact that Sephiroth seems to know everything that's gonna happen. It even seems like he's trying to avoid what happens in the original. I think that's a very weak idea, but I'll talk more about it later. Second, Wedge and Big surviving the fall of Sector 7. Cause their deaths, even though they were minor characters, are important for the development of the story. They grow feelings of anger towards Shinra, and also show that the game won't be afraid to kill characters. It's not that bad, but there's just no need to change that. Third, and most important, the fact that Zack is alive. It's literally necessary, essential for him to be dead. Not only does this make the ending of Crisis Core completely worthless, but come on, his death is what literally causes Cloud to become the Cloud we know. I mean, Wedge and Biggs being alive, not that bad, but Zack cannot be alive. He just can't. And what's worse is that it leaves a door open for characters who are supposed to die to live. There's a very big conversation going around about the possibility that they don't kill Aerith. I don't think I'm crazy for thinking that will be crossing a line, cause everything that happens after is based around her death. They literally saved the world thanks to that. So what? Are they gonna change everything? I really don't like this, and I don't think it's interesting. Some people say this game is a sequel to the original, and that explains everything I've said. But once again, first, I don't think it's interesting at all. Second, this should have been a remake to honor one of the greatest games of all time, not a freaking ass boring reimagination divided in parts. What angers me the most is that it seems like they're doing the right thing with Ever Crisis for mobile devices. It's gotta be a bad joke, I swear. But let's talk about the visuals. Visually, this is the best game I've ever seen. It's insane. The amount of detail the characters have, how well constructed and designed the scenery is, the cutscenes, like seriously, the graphics and visuals of this game are a masterpiece. There are moments that can leave you with your mouth open or even make you cry of how pretty they are. For me, the biggest example is when Aerith shows with the red dress. I cried, and I cried a lot. In general, the whole wall market part is a display of masterclass design. The fall of Sector 7, that moment when they jump with the parachutes. Well, I really like those parts at night in Sector 7. The contrast between the yellow lights of the houses and the streets compared to the white ones of the Shinra buildings makes that place feel so warm. But you know, picking moments out of such an astonishing game is almost impossible. Though there are some moments that don't make it perfect. There's a clear difference from the main characters and the very secondary ones. That does take you a little out of the experience. Still, there's not a single moment of the 40 hours it took me to complete it where I wasn't mesmerized by how incredible the visuals are. And along a very close line, I want to talk about the characters. Because undeniably, having these super realistic characters makes them feel more alive and human than the polygons of the original. Yeah, and you'll get closer to the characters you already love. Like, after this game, my love for Aerith is on the skies. Being able to see Tifa's worrying in her eyes, Barrett's angriness and Cloud's coldness is priceless. A big, huge point for this remake is the development they gave to the rest of the Avalanche members. Cause in the original they barely appear before dying, and here, especially with Jessie, you'll end up feeling so close to her. She gained a lot, and moments like the talk outside her house make her death even more devastating. And the comic duo Wedge and Biggs make is hilarious. So in that aspect of giving the Avalanche members more personality, I think they did an amazing job. Oh, and also Johnny, who is a little annoying but does have some funny moments. This also applies for the Shinra guys, Reno, Rude, Rufus. God, I think they gain a lot. Reno in particular, the encounters with him and his relation with Cloud are excellent. Oh, and every single character here has such good voice acting, at least in English because that's how I played it. But I really tip my hat to all of them. There's also a couple things I didn't like. The addition of characters that had nothing, like Roach. I swear I even forgot about him, cause he appears in some early chapters and then completely disappears. Where did he go? And something I really dislike is the way they treat Sephiroth, cause I think they destroyed his whole character. Putting Sephiroth like an hour into the game is not a good idea. One of the aspects I love the most about him is how slowly constructed he is in the original. They all talk about the legend, the most powerful soldier, and then in one of the Nibelheim scenes, we see he has like 5000 HP in a moment where we have like 100 something. So there's a huge difference. His character is very well built, and all that mysteriousness and greatness around him doesn't exist here. He is just bothering Cloud all the time. In the original, he doesn't even care about the heroes in this part of the game. While in the remake, his whole objective is to mess with Cloud's mind. Cause seriously, he doesn't do anything else. A very important scene for him is that one at the Shinra building. That moment where we notice something is going wrong, someone is attacking the building, becomes a horror scene. There is blood in every corner, everyone's dead. You start to guess no one else could have caused that. And it's frightening thinking you might have to fight against him. Getting to the top and finding the president dead with the Masamune. It's an excellent scene. But it was too much for the remake because they completely changed it. Sephiroth doesn't attack. Nobody notices him because he doesn't kill anyone. No blood. He just takes the body of Genova and her kind of blood is the one we see. And when we get to the top, the president is alive. Yeah, Sephiroth kills him a little bit later, but it doesn't have the same effect. That's something that really annoyed me, because again, I personally think they ruined his character development. I would like to know what a person who's never played the original thinks about him, because he's such an empty character. And yeah, most of us know who he is, but there's no magic in doing it this way. Now let's talk about two aspects of this game I do think are fantastic. The combat and materia system. I personally think they're infinitely superior to the original. I'm not the biggest enjoyer of turn-based combat, cause it lacks a lot of action sometimes. Battles here are incredibly fun. They have a lot of action, some are definitely hard, but they're all super enjoyable. Even the most basic enemies you face are fun to fight, which is something that for me the original didn't have. I swear, the rush you get when you stun an enemy and you give all to them is unmatched. I also really like the fact that every enemy has a strategy that in most cases you need to find if you want to defeat them. Whether it's finding their weaknesses or deciding how you'll use your party members. It's not that hard, but it makes them more interesting than just mashing buttons. Also, the stages of each battle were really well done, and the visual action going on makes them really memorable. But I super love how they implemented the materia system here, because it makes more sense and works better than in the original. It's just excellent. In this aspect, this game is almost flawless. Some of my favorite battles were the one against Rufus, the Whispers at the end, the Hell House, and the one against both Rude and Reno at the same time. But there was one I hated that connects with 2 more points, the Ghoul one. Because there's a bug that when I played it a year after the game's release hadn't been fixed, which is that for some reason the fight crashes at the middle of it. You appear kind of inside these structures and there's nothing you can do besides closing the game. Which is already something bad of its own and kind of common because I saw a lot of players talking about it. But there's a worrying amount of bugs throughout the game, and the fact that a year later had not been fixed says a lot. But it can be worse, cause when you go back to the game, you'll appear at your last save. And this is my fault, but I hadn't saved in a while. So I had to replay like an hour of the game because of that and hope that the battle wouldn't crash again. Worst part is this whole section of the game is filler. It adds nothing, so I was definitely not excited to play it again and almost abandoned the game right there. And that's the second point. The insane amount of filler this game has. Picture this. This section of the game took me 8 hours to complete in the original. This remake took me 40. We're talking about a 32 hours difference. I'm not joking when I say most of them are nothing but boring, unnecessarily overextended filler. And it's not even good filler, no, they just extended sections of the game as much as they could to make time. For example, the Collapse Expressway. That part in the original takes less than 5 minutes. Here it takes an hour. Can someone even explain me how that makes sense? Another example, when you're going to plant the second bomb. It takes like an hour and a half. It's so unnecessarily extended. The train graveyard part, which adds nothing, climbing the 59 floors of the Shinra building, escaping Hojo's lab, and those are just a couple of the countless examples of filler this game has. I swear, on average, between important events, there are at least 2 hours of filler. It's so slow that it kills all the immersion between how bad the story is explained and how long it takes for something to happen. Sometimes you can't even remember what the story has told you, and I think that's a crime. At the end they did something that I didn't like at all, which is putting Aerith to explain all the holes and dumb things this game wasn't able to explain. It's upsetting. I will also include here the secondary missions. Each and every single one of them. The ones in Sector 7, Wall Market and Sector 5. They are some of the most boring, pointless, annoying missions I've ever played. Cause they couldn't add much to the story and still be fun. But that's not the case. Playing them is seriously a test to your patience. Obviously they gotta be super long, but there's something that I find disgusting about them. And that's how the game kinda forces you to play them. Cause for example, if you don't complete all the side quests in the wall market, Aerith won't wear the red dress and that whole scene will be different, which I really think is a disgusting move. I didn't finish the Sector 5 ones cause it was just too much for me. This really angers me because as I mentioned at the beginning, they were more than capable of doing the whole game, but no, they decided to throw endless amounts of filler to divide the game and make more money. I mean, this one's longer than the original one. It sometimes feels like a joke. It's a disappointment. Finally, I want to talk about the music, which for the most part is decent, especially in the battles. I think it sounds great and gave a lot of emotion and power to the fights. Some of the better known songs of this soundtrack were reworked in a really cool way, like the intro one or Tifa's theme. I actually think the remix version of Tifa's theme is fantastic. And there's moments where they use the music in really intelligent ways for the development of the game. Like the moment when Cloud and Aerith meet. I cried as soon as the notes of her theme started playing. But there are also some reinterpretations or new songs that absolutely suck. Like the electro-techno one that plays in the Collapse Expressway, or when you're climbing from Sector 7 to the Shinra building. So I would say it's mostly decent with some pretty moments and very low ones. To conclude, I think this remake did a lot of stuff right. I will always appreciate the way it made me love even more the characters of this game. I have no words to express how beautiful it is to see them all in Midgard with this level of graphics. I connected a lot more with them, but honestly I don't think this is a worthy remake. Worthy of your money, time, patience. It's a disappointment of meteoric proportions. I really hope they fix their mistakes in the second part of it. I'll definitely play it. But for me, no matter what they do, they ruined the remake of Final Fantasy VII. I'm glad I finished it, I'll never play it again. So yeah, as always, I hope you enjoyed watching. This time I especially thank you. I did this video for myself because I really needed to get all of this out. But if you stayed till the end, I really appreciate that you took the time to hear what I had to say. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, I'd love to see them. And don't forget to check my first album Diamonds if you haven't yet. It's available everywhere, but you'll have the Spotify link in the description for you to go check it. I'd really appreciate if you do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I've been waiting for years, hoping there's still a chance that you'll come visiting someday. Don't care if the guns are rusty, the bullet's black, you can still pretend